select here. There's Thresh and Elise banned by CLG. Zach, that first banned by Immortals. And I have the pleasure of not one, but two analysts to help me break down this draft. My job is going to be very easy in this game.
Yeah, we see a lot of jungle bans early, Zach and Elise. I see CLG as a team that bans, or that is willing to flex Maokai in the mid of the top lane, and Immortals is a team that banned Maokai and Shogath yesterday, so I wouldn't be too surprised if I see Immortals ban out the big tanks here.
Well, there's Galio actually banned for CLG, so even more tanks actually getting targeted here. Kind of interesting to see also the jungle focus. We already highlighted Dardoch and Xmithy are going to be pretty big as far as the overall impact on this game goes. And Immortals' last ban is Caitlyn, so a lot open here for CLG in the first pick.
I feel that if CLG wants to pull out one of those tank or jungle matchups where the top laner assists the jungle matchup, for example, Cho'Gath here is a really good flex for if Dardoch wants to counterpick the jungle matchup, or if he wants to hide the pocket Rengar pick that he pulled out last match.
Yeah, it feels like CLG is willing to flex either the Maokai or the Cho'Gath in either direction, so I'm a little surprised they banned the Caitlyn, but you almost have to against Stixxay because of how good Stixxay and Aphromoo are in that bottom lane with Caitlyn plus anything.
I think so as well, and Immortals kind of confusing me a little bit here with these first two picks. I mean, Jarvan, perfectly solid. You can flex it jungle, but almost always seen top, and it is one of Flame's big picks. And Jhin is a perfectly good pick, but if I ever see something like a big tank like Cho'Gath as the first pick, I'm almost instantly like shied away from wanting to pick something like Jhin, because he just cannot bust through the sheer amount of health or resistance is there.
I feel that Immortals, after seeing the Cho'Gath pick, they're going to opt for a very aggressive top jungle matchup on their side to try and counter and abuse the Cho'Gath's immobility.
Yeah, and the thing we have to keep in mind is that Xmithy did play jungle Jarvan, even if Jarvan is Flame's one of two most played champions along with Renekton, so a lot of flexibility still left on both sides.
Right, well, Trist and Talia, the next few picks there for CLG, but
I like that CLG here is trying to protect the Cho'Gath with the potential Talia pick, because with Talia in the mid lane, it allows for their team to have roam pressure and mid pressure.
Like that as well, and I think Pobelter may actually answer here with a relatively mobile champion, not quite as good as Talia, but when he has the package, Corki is good, and Pobelter's played a lot of this champion this weekend.
Yeah, he played it multiple times in victories yesterday, and it just spews damage, especially it feels like for Pobelter, able to get to the late game and use his package very successfully in all of his roams. As Mike's talking about Talia protecting the top lane, Corki can technically do the same thing up top as well.
There's a Narband from Immortals starting to target that top side, but I think you're already sensing the power of something like a Cho'Gath or Maokai in the draft, because of course you can flex. I know, Mike Young, when we were talking earlier, you've heard like Cho'Gath may be a better jungle pick, but that doesn't mean that you can't put a top lane as well if you can kind of find good matchups.
Yeah, the value of the Cho'Gath pick in draft is that it can be used as a flex, and you can wait to figure out if Immortals wants to show one of the jungle or top picks first.
Well, Blitz is actually one of their bans, which is kind of curious, and Rumble's going to join the list there for CLG, so a lot of different things kind of being signaled here, but last ban Bard's going to get another phase 2 support ban, and I have no idea what Immortals want here in this phase.
They have a lot of flexibility left because we know that the Jarvan can go jungle or top, same with CLG, so that's why that second ban phase felt so kind of shotgun style, just trying to hit a bunch of big-time champions. This will tell us a lot more about what Immortals is doing. What do you think about the Karma there, Mike? It's something we haven't seen much of lately.
I'm not completely sure exactly where Karma's going to go here. We have seen in the past that Karma in the support role can be really valuable in rotations and just getting around the map and utilizing that mobility, especially against a team like Cho'Gath, where the Cho'Gath can be punished for just being run all around.
Well, it looks like Mike Young's read was correct. CLG finished their draft. There's the Soraka once again for Aphromoo, but Rengar last pick again for Dada, kind of feinting the flex with the Cho'Gath jungle all the way through the draft, but setting up once again for a pick that Dardoch is just so well known for. And I mean, we haven't seen that many assassin-style junglers, but certainly if anyone's going to succeed on a pick like Rengar, it is going to be someone like Dardoch.
Man, and with the Shen, we do know that they flexed the Jarvan to jungle. With the Rengar, we know the Cho'Gath is going top. I'm a little concerned about Immortals' damage with the Jhin as their main marksman up against the Cho, but the Corki helps that out a little bit. Either way, excited to see another Aphromoo Soraka as he pulled it out yesterday as well.
Yeah.
As for this draft, I feel very confident in Immortals' top side of the map because the Jarvan and Shen have very easy setup for the Cho'Gath dive as well as just ganking the Cho'Gath overall. And Rengar would have to do a tremendous job with the jungle pathing just to protect the Cho'Gath alone.
And we've kind of seen this already. I mean, one of the issues I think with Cho'Gath top is that even though it is very strong, once you get out of lane and have all your farm and your items, you're kind of a sitting duck for a jungle. I mean, I feel like, Mike, you kind of look at this matchup and be like, well, I'm just going to camp top lane all game and kind of reap the benefits of Cho'Gath. He's not really able to do very much in that 1v1, or 2v1 especially.
So what we're looking here for is how Dardoch uses his pathing and how he plays with Huhi to get topside control, vision control around mid, so that Cho'Gath has an easier time, and just so that bot lane as well, Tristan and Soraka can just survive until the late game phase.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Mike. The Jarvan and the Shen have good, reliable setup for Cho'Gath. We've seen a lot of Cho'Gath top lane, and it hasn't been much of an early game lane bully, so absolutely vulnerable to those types of early ganks, and it's going to be a test to see how well Dardoch and Darshan can protect that top lane to get through the late game.
And I still believe that once the Cho'Gath gets rolling, that even after a certain point, Jarvan and Shen ganks won't be enough anymore.
Well, I have to see if Cho'Gath can get to that point. We haven't seen too many Cho'Gath really take over games yet, but we've seen the clips on Reddit. We've seen every now and then someone someday getting knocked back towards the AD carry and then getting a free feast. Like, you can clearly be very disruptive and very impactful once you get rolling.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows who he had a quick DC, we should be getting into the game very shortly. I want to talk a little bit about early jungle paths. How much do you like being on blue side versus red side? I know Phoenix One was one of the first teams to kind of do the super leashes.
Yeah.
You were one of the first beneficiaries of the super leashes. How do you play as that versus against that now that, you know, Xmithie's going to be red side Jarvan versus CLG being blue side Rengar?
I feel that on the purple side in this matchup, their top laner doesn't necessarily have to be too afraid of the super leash because Cho'Gath doesn't necessarily have the most scary setup as well as like the Rengar ganks because Rengar needs to stack the bullet strike for the stun. And even if Rengar gets the super leash, it's mainly just going to help him clear faster. Whereas if he was playing a really gank influenced jungler like Jarvan, for example, if Jarvan was on the blue side, then it would be much more scary for the level 3 gank.
Right, so now you're putting yourselves in the shoes of CLG, and if you're only going to get clear speed out of a super leash, do you even go for it, or is the cost too high to your lanes, do you think?
I think the cost is too high, as like CLG doesn't really have that great of a super leash team, and ganking for Cho'Gath won't necessarily snowball him too hard since he's not a hyper carry.
And on the other side, I mean, I know it is more difficult on the red or purple side to get things done with leashes, but I mean, Jarvan is a champion that can really exploit a lot of very creative and aggressive gank paths. Other options here for Xmithie, kind of pulling his teammates in and looking for some sort of early aggression, either top lane if he wants to pick on there or any of the other lanes that he could visit.
So the most important part about the Jarvan is going to be where he starts. So if he starts bottom side, then we're going to see a very different Darshan in the first few minutes of the game, where he's going to have to be scared of the Jarvan gank.
So in that case, so much of it does then become about the early game scouting of kind of where you get the wards. I'm looking at these level 1 teams. Technically, a Cho'Gath can be very scary level 1, but these Cho'Gaths I often see just start Vorpal spikes anyway for the early lane trades. So I'm going to be curious to see how defensively versus offensively CLG plays this one, since the Jarvan's early jungle pathing does have a lot to say about the early game.
And I think while we're on the subject of jungle pathing, while we are kind of waiting to get into this game, shouldn't be too long, but my kind of general open question is, how many assumptions do you make based on the information you get? Like, if you know someone is starting on the bottom side, how many other assumptions can you make about their pathing? Because obviously, once you've started to pick an option tree, your options do kind of filter out. But I know that, you know, some players like to do more aggressive routes or do some invades. Like, do you feel comfortable just saying, okay, there's this champion starting here, I know where you're going 90% of the time?
It depends on the champion. As for Rengar's sake, you can kind of figure out where he's going because Rengar can't necessarily level 2 gank. But as for Jarvan, he can start red buff and then level 2 gank top. And I believe that wherever Xmithie starts, Darshan and Dardoch is definitely going to have to change their jungle route, jungle pressure, and lane timings altogether.
Yeah, and we're going to get into this a little bit in the game as well, but Cinder Hulk Jarvan is something we saw yesterday, even though almost everyone was going Warrior Jarvan earlier. What are your thoughts on the pros and cons of going Cinder Hulk now? Because I'm expecting Xmithie to do it again since he did it yesterday.
So Jarvan with Cinderhulk, with the recent buffs to Cinderhulk, it increases his clear speed. And one of the weakest things about Jarvan is just that his clear speed is lacking, and that just pretty much makes up for the champion's weaknesses.
Yeah, do you think that puts him high into meta now? Because Xmith is one of the few to play it. Is it something that you would put top 5 junglers with Cinderhulk, or is it still just a fringe pick?
I think it's still a fringe pick until people experience some practice with it, some results with it. And right now, it's just Xmithy's pocket pick, as well as Moon's.
I just feel like in general that, again, we've really just had, we've had actually just had a week on this patch, so there is so much to consider as far as what the teams are learning. I think next week, teams I'm sure will do a lot of prep work and kind of have a much better idea about what's going on. But for me, every team has kind of had their own interpretation. I think Immortals really represents to me like, we're just going to play how we want to play. When we look at Cloud9 in the last series, I think they're also saying that we just kind of want to play the way that we think we should be playing on the patch, rather than just playing like Cho'Gath and Makai and really playing all the picks that people consider to be those top tiers. I mean, I guess as far as from your side, Mike, watching P1's games, it does feel like you guys kind of took a lot of those strong champions and just played them. Do you think it's team versus team about how you should be approaching these things, or do you think you should just be like, okay, we're here, we should play the meta champions because that's the best thing?
I think the best thing for teams to do is to continue and play their style of game, but you can kind of incorporate the meta champions, but don't change from how you usually play.
Makes sense to me. If you're aggressive, stay aggressive. If you're like CLG, because I think one of their benefits is they do kind of play the same way through almost every patch. They're an eternal team in some ways. They can always find a way to play 6 on a hyper carry, Huhi on a mid lane he can roam on, and then I guess Dardoch's the flexible one these days.
Yeah, this is the weird thing about this, right? Is that CLG is almost going back to some of the things that used to work for them. I mean, Dardoch loved playing Rengar when Rengar was a year and a half ago and still plays it now. Aphromoo, one of the first people to pull out Soraka at MSI in 2006. What year is it? 2016
there
MSI. So that's kind of what we're having to ask on this patch too, is what year is it, because of seeing Shen versus Cho'Gath in the top lane sometimes. And even this game, we're seeing a return of Karma in the bottom lane, maybe to start trying to dodge some Cho'Gath ruptures in the late game or just move around the map faster. But definitely some really interesting things that are happening to the meta this patch.
And I have to ask in general kind of what we are, again, still kind of waiting for things to move forward. We have seen the team comps already. As far as like what these teams are looking to accomplish with their drafts, because I think IMT have a very specific way of wanting to play and have drafted thus. So CLG also sticking to their team comp, but maybe picking a few more meta things. We've talked a lot about jungling, but maybe general moving into that mid and late game. We are seeing games end very quickly. I guess what do we need to see from these teams based on their drafts to have a successful game? Because again, this is a very high stakes match for both these teams.
I think that Immortals team comp is very straightforward, where they have a very strong front line and back line, where they have the strong initiate with the Jarvan and Shen just to start a fight, and then the Corki, Karma, and Jhin just to finish out the fight, either to kite back or to continue going in.
And if we look on the CLG side, as maybe have to hold that thought.
All right.
Crowd is cheering, the camera is panning. That means we have some League of Legends to play.
Yeah, and when I look at the CLG team composition, to contrast with the Immortals team composition, they do have a lot that revolves around the two. They don't have a reliable type of initiation that Immortals is going to have. So as far as picking their fights, they have to be a lot craftier in how they do so. Try and catch Immortals when they're pushed up, wall them off with Leah. Rupture is not a reliable initiation. And Rengar Ultimate also is fairly lacking as far as that goes. So I think CLG is going to have to fall pretty far ahead, get pretty far ahead in laning phase, or counter the initiations of Immortals.
Well, we'll see if they can maybe move some side lane pressure as well. We've seen a lot of that from Huhi in the past on the likes of Talia. But once again, we will be paying extra special close attention to some of these early jungle starts. Right now, teams just fan out across the river. Other than that, we'll see if anyone can get some vision down. CLG, you've got a defensive ward, but haven't seen teams really group up and try and get some vision. It feels like everyone's happy to just kind of play with the standard level of information rather than invade and really make sure they know what's going on.
Yeah, and I really want to track the early jungle routes with Mike here as well, because no early wards as of yet for CLG. How important do you think it is that they get some vision of Jarvan?
So it's really important for CLG to get vision of Jarvan because he can start pretty much anywhere at this point. But if anybody leashes, for example, Shen or bot lane leashes, then CLG can kind of get an idea of where he starts that way.
Well, from what we can see, because it's nice. We can see the whole map. Flame and Xmithy are going to be grouping on just the red buff. So you kind of mentioned already that we could see a lot of early aggression. I mean, you can go from red buff straight to a lane if you so desire.
Yeah, we get the luxury of being able to see both sides here, Mike, so we can sound smart while we're talking about jungle. That was a very fast clear of Raptors, pretty much without assistance on Rengar. So Dardoch's going to be experienced up pretty quick.
Yeah, so with Rengar, you always want to start in early camp like Raptors because of his AoE Q clear, and that just allows him to get that extra edge onto the Jarvan.
Looks like maybe an invade actually from Xmith. He does have a ward to put down, although actually wrapping around back to mid lane, so gonna try something here with Huhi. Oh, level 2 though, easy for Talia. Pobelta going straight in for it. Now Huhi gonna pop the ghost and try and run away. EQ not gonna land. Flash from Xmith, he doesn't quite connect, but Huhi does burn both summoners there.
Yeah, I mean, Huhi was ghosted the whole time, so even though Xmithy tried to flash follow, he just wasn't moving as fast as Huhi. And now I think Xmithy's in a pretty big debt, wrapping around on the red buff gank. Mike, what can Dardoch read off of that early gank from Xmithy, and where does he go from here?
So Dardoch in this situation can read off of Xmithy's route in his entire route at this point of the game, where he has a few options to either just do Raptors or go to his bot side of the jungle. And right now, he is predicting if he comes to the top side, then they can just do the counter gank or just do the solo gank.
The rupture.
Dota gonna move in here. Darshan already hit that first Q. Taunt's gonna miss, but Flame will flash away to safety. Great bit of pressure though from Dardoch, and credit to Darshan for hitting that very tricky skill shot.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to try and pressure more. Still teleport up on Flame. This is kind of buying time for Xmithy to get back in the jungle. He knows the gank was with top lane, and he's just going to farm back up.
So the fail of the gank in the mid lane from Xmithy allows CLG, Darshan's side, to play so much more aggressive into the Flame because they know that the Jarvan only has camps in the bot side of the map. And you can see here that Darshan is just pushing the waves in and just making Shen have a difficult time farming under tower.
Yeah, Darshan is going to leave and maybe get some vision down as Dardoch clears his left side of the jungle. Have a quick look here at the jungle proximity of Dardoch versus Xmithy. Not too many massive differences. Maybe mid there for Dardoch being the one that sticks out immediately.
Yeah, always curious to have that read against enemy junglers. Mike, you played against both Xmithy and Dardoch. Did jungle proximity stats mean anything to you, or does it pretty much just a feel of junglers? Did you notice any tendencies from either of these guys that you can just guess where they're going to be during a game?
So whenever you're playing a game, the stats don't necessarily matter outside of the game. And when you're in the game, everything that matters is just how the lanes are playing out. So which lanes are pushing, and the matchups matter much more than the players.
Cody Sun and Ole getting some shoves in here. We do check in with the bottom lane. Certainly going to again be kind of hammering that jungle focus for the next 5 minutes or so, but pretty stable 2v2 it feels like here. I mean, Jixie and Afro just want to farm. Soraka's not too threatening as far as her 2v2 presence goes. Looks like Cody and Ole trying to play aggressive as Xmithy sneaking into that top side of the map looking for a lane gank.
Yeah, this is what we talked about earlier. The potential low mobility of Cho'Gath, but it's a flashless Shen and a flashless Jarvan.
So here, CLG's top laner isn't very gankable because this gank can be predicted very easily.
Ooh, very nice from Dardoch. Loops it onto Pobelta, forcing the flash. Bowler is going to miss as a result, but feels like every time Dardoch's entering a lane, he's getting at least a summoner spell out of it. Really efficient stuff from this Rengar.
Yeah, pretty unlikely as well, I feel like. A lot of times Rengar waits till level 6 to get the really big ganks off. Just being able to walk in 2 lanes and get 2 flashes sets up his level 6 really well.
Dardoch still looking to pressure wherever he can. Only one camp that we can see, but Dardoch is going to walk in and check it. He's going to see the Raptors, but hadn't seen Xmithy just yet. He's not far away though as Dardoch. He's going to try and start this camp. Xmithy now spotted him, no sneaking around, but Dardoch does have his smite able to take that away, and Xmithy just kind of has to watch. Going to leap back in now, but Pobelta not even there just yet. Dardoch taking low though. Jarvan doing a lot of damage, going to force that flash out of Dardoch.
So this is really interesting because even though Dardoch used his flash, they get so much of a lead everywhere else for CLG. Because CLG was able to steal the Jarvan's Raptors.
Face check here from Hui's kind of problematic, but here's the other way. Xmithy's just, all right, I'm out of there anyway. As you can see, the early XP advantage kind of across the map, CLG feeling ahead here.
So what I was talking about before is since Dardoch was able to take the enemy Raptors, this makes it so Jarvan can only do bottom side camps afterwards, and CLG can kind of read this type of path. So you see here that Aframo is playing much safer, and then Darshan can just get the perma shove continuously.
Yeah, and this early pathing by Dardoch has been pretty successful. The fact that Darshan didn't fall to any type of early Jarvan gank means he's now up to level 6 on Shogath, and the low mobility or early lane punishing on Shogath is a little bit out the window since Jarvan now still level 4, 7 minutes in.
Yeah, it feels a little rough here, and Dardoch's actually very close to level 6. This ward might even do it if it's just enough XP, but Dardoch going to clear that out. So Xfinity placed it earlier, and it was level 6 there for Dardoch.
6 off a ward. Dangerous to stick around for red buff, but definitely tempting. How do you avoid the greed there going for red buff?
I feel like I would want to take it, but this is definitely why I'm not a jungler. That's who he's going to shove this lane back around Dardoch. We'll see where that first ultimate does go, but overall efficiency feels to be up here for the Rengar. Xfinity is going to take this red, but Dardoch at least got vision down before leaving that area. So again, Xfinity just being really well tracked here. This first 7.5 minutes of the game. Always important to keep track of these junglers, especially when they can be as threatening like Jarvan or Rengar.
One interesting thing in this game is that Dardoch is having a very high jungle proximity near the mid lane and the top lane, and that's all just to protect the early game Cho'Gath. And here we can see that bot lane, CLG's bot lane top is just to play defensive and just to play alone in the 2v2 situation.
Yeah, there's not many ganks you're going to pull off. With a Soraka lane, Soraka doesn't exactly lend to the most CC, not to mention you're up against Karma. So I do like what we're seeing out of CLG for sure, having Dardoch babysit that side a little bit and then just playing the map properly where they have the advantages.
All right, so now it's kind of the point we're expecting where the whole top side for both teams can kind of come alive here. Xfinity able to take down that crab. Not 6 just yet, but we'll get it relatively soon. Dardoch level 7 though, so really power farming through the rest of it. But Pobelta did just pick up the package, and we've already seen Immortals as a team use this very well together. Pobelta going to pick up blue, and we'll see where they look to threaten with this first kind of big cooldown available.
Yeah, and really interested to see the incredibly early execution is calling out of Cody's Sun. If it was any carry other than Jhin, I wouldn't like it, but because Jhin pretty much just builds a bunch of long swords anyway, this fits in pretty well to his style. Still going to hurt his damage against everyone else, though.
Looks like they're just farming it out here in the bot lane, though, so that'll be good news for Styx there. He's already got that BF sword ready, helping him shove out those waves. Aframu doing Soraka things. Good chunk of damage, though. Actually, Ole going to go in for it. Ignites down. Cody's Sun can line up the ultimate, but Afro going to try and protect himself. Bullets going in. Needs to land it, but Afro burns the ultimate. Great buster drop from Styx there. Going to turn off that ulti.
Yeah, really close trade right there. Cody, with the Average Blade, no, he's going to reduce a lot of the healing Aframu can do. That's why Aframu tried to hold off on his wish, but CLG save all of their summoners. Now they are at danger of a package from the mid lane, though. Pobelter no longer has it, but he did a little while ago.
Not sure how he lost it, but seems to have used it somewhere else. May have just timed out. Doesn't last that long as Dardoch going to threaten here in that top lane again. Darshan getting taunted under the turret by Flame. That's a lot of damage. I think we're going to call off the tower dive at this point. Looks like Xfinity was also around here, so maybe not the best idea. Anyway, looks like Kuhi also moving up. So CLG again trying to threaten with all of that mobility now that Pobelta's package is worn off. Oh, Styx going to get bound up again, maybe by Ole. So much pressure here from the IMT duo.
Yeah, and at this point, now that they're taking so much pressure, how does this dictate Dardoch's state of mind right now? Because the duo lane is getting pushed in 2v2. Does he change it up, or how does he play?
So how Dardoch has to play now is still continue to get mid priority because Taliyah can force his pressure around all the entire map.
Get aggressed on here though. Pobelta moving forward. Xenox is going to move it. Dunk there from the Cataclysm. Dardoch tries to hop out with the taunt. He's going to connect, and first blood over to Pobelta.
Now Immortals had the same idea of mid priority win there, and they are smashing this bottom lane with that Average Blade purchase.
Ole gets a flash out of the deal. Flashing forward.
He's coming though.
Who are you going to ride down? Look for it, Ole. Backing onto Styx here, but it's a 3v2 technically. Afro still healing it up. It's a heal burnt by Cody. Might keep Ole alive. Pobelta TP's down, but it might be too late. Ole already dead.
Dive might continue though. Smithy's Jarvan is on the way.
Going to keep going for it. Could be a dive set up here for Immortals. Wave is in. This looks very dangerous for CLG. Afro looks to be the target. Root lands in. Iker gets all 3 of them. Cody gets Afro. Everybody dies. Perfect dive from Immortals.
Oh man, if we worried about the Jhin not having damage from the Average Blade, well, he just got a little bit of gold back. That's 3 kills plus the first turret.
Feels unlucky there for Dardoch, I think, as we watch this dive again. I mean, great counter, I think, here from CLG to try and make something happen, but IMT with a great answer.
Yeah, you can see Stixxay just being trapped against his turret. Pobelter keeps him there, and the patience of xSmithy's knock up here, knowing there's a lot of summoner spells potentially down. Still 2 flashes. They both flashed into the EQ. Questionable from a retreat perspective right there.
Here we can see the value of mid and jungle priority because CLG, since Dardak was the one on the retrieving side where Immortals was able to win through the Jarvan gank onto the Rengar, they were able to move down with an extra member, and that just turned the fight, and they got first tower off that.
And I don't know if this is just something that I'm observing in xSmithy that might be a bias based on the play I've seen from him, but he does strike me as a player that's really good at setting up for situations like that, really understanding when he can gank, what the timings look like, and then obviously in those spots execute well. So maybe not traditionally a gank-heavy jungler, but certainly sets them up when he needs to. Dardak, though, trying something of his own, but pretty easy one from Immortals just to walk away from.
Yeah, I see it's really difficult for Dardak to try and get back into the game right now. Michael, if you were the Rengar in this situation, how would you try and get back in anything? Because bottom lane was losing, mid lane priority's kind of been lost. Where's his avenues back in?
So his avenue is pretty much based off of Immortals' misplay, because with their current team comp, it relies solely on the Rengar initiate. So the Rengar would have to initiate or counter-initiate based off of an over-aggressive play by Immortals.
Seems like pace isn't slowing down for IMT anytime soon. 2,500 gold in the lead. We're going to try and siege down this other tower. I mean, we thought Cho'Gath was going to struggle with some jungle pressure, now sitting in an actual 2v1 for these next few minutes. Looks like Flame, with the team already completed, actually able to keep the wave pushed back relatively safely as xSmithy is going to start up this Rift Herald.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about in this game is just control wards in general, and maybe getting some of your insight on this, Mike. Being up 3,000 or 4,000 gold, we know, at least in pro play, so many control wards are bought. What's the priorities of where to place them down in this stage?
So you would want to use the control wards around the next objective. So in this case, Immortals would want the control wards to be around the topside area to prevent the vision onto the Jarvan.
And there we have it.
Rift Herald getting channeled, actually. I feel like teams are getting of a pretty wide range of things they like to do with the Herald, but this is a pretty straightforward push from Immortals. Already had it prepped up with Cody San and Ole, so xSmithy just going to make it even faster. As the Herald's going to smack that down, and still a decent amount of health actually can maybe try and push down for a second as CLG is still trying to chew through this bottom outer turret.
Yeah, Herald pushes better than Trist, in my experience.
That is correct.
This is a really tough situation for CLG to be in.
Rotation, I'm just catching him here. Dartron actually might even be in trouble. Knock up there from xSmithy. Not too tanky on the true right now, but he's going to ride in. He traps the Herald in. So CLG going to stop the rest of that shot. But Cody actually going to try and get a snipe down here. Afromu also in the area, able to heal up his teammates, who he eats the last bullet. But that might be enough to actually take the turret. Nice ult from Cody. Going to force them off, and Immortals do take the next objective.
Immortals really smashing. Not only do they have 2 supers completed already, they also have a large lead in turrets. A lot of advantages in their favor.
And I want to credit all of this due to xSmithy's early game decision making. And even after the failed level 2 gank, he was able to come back through a really great read onto Dardak, where he was able to catch out Dardak, and then they were forcing the advantage in the bot lane with Jhin and Karma to a 4-man dive.
Has certainly been some great execution here from Immortals as they're moving through into the mid game, and fortunately now the first 10 minutes are over. A lot of that early jungle play is kind of out the window in some ways. I mean, those early decisions certainly cascade into the mid game, but kind of what's the next thing for a jungler sitting at maybe the 15-minute mark here, Mike? Because I think it's the easy stuff is like, well, I know how to jungle early in my pathing, and I know how to make late game decisions around the big objectives. But what are the things you need to look for both on offense and defense given the situation?
So in this situation, it's really going to be down to team play. So the shot caller of each individual team or just the combined effort is going to decide if they win the mid game.
Is going on to Dardak. They're both going to ride in. It's going to force a flash out there after the package, but trapped into the pit. Dardak going down. xSmithy grabs the kill.
Yeah, and there was Pobelter using his package again very effectively. You're thinking the next objective may have been the Mountain Drake, so you'd want to set up that with controllers. Maybe that's why Dardak was up on the top side, but Immortals just ahead of the play once again. Now they push mid.
Happy to take the pick and try and transfer it here into mid lane turret. Wave clear's pretty good. Stixxay and Huhi able to help out there, but Like you said, Mountain Drake still up for grabs, so a pretty easy transition down. As Cody actually might just start this one up solo, gonna hit it, but Xmithie gonna roam down as Pobelta continues to apply pressure. Priorities looking rough here for who he is. That should be a Drake over. Always wonder exactly how different teams prioritize the Drakes. I think at some point you should just take them when you get the chance to, but obviously different Drakes have different priority.
Mountain Drake being up first in this game 17 minutes in, I mean, this was such a game played around turrets. Mike, Mountain Drake 17 minutes, pretty abnormal. Why do you think it happened in this game?
I feel that it's just a really good dragon at this point in the game because we have Baron coming up in 3 minutes, and Immortals is going to use this mountain drag to just get Baron control, and they're going to most likely use this Baron pressure to either bait CLG in or to get secure Baron for themselves.
Well, looks like again still shoving down mid. IMT working on that last turret, but 3 turrets to 1 already with 1 outer still remaining. This is the easy one for Immortals to grab. Xmithie's going to group back up. Nice wave coming through, and already 4 upwards Flame ready with his teleport. No ultimate, but could be just enough with the Mountain Drake's help to try and knock through. His wave clear though, able to keep that at bay. Looks like Immortals kind of favoring some vision on this left side here.
Yeah, absolutely love Knight's Vow as an item on this patch. Feels like gives you all the stats you need. Not to mention Cody's Sun is fed, now more protected on that. And just setting up around the next objective. Look at all the control wards they have already purchased and have total control of this side of the jungle for one Baron spots.
Is there a worry here, kind of in the jungle matchup right now? Because we do consider Rengar, you know, certainly a very snowbally style of champion. I mean, Mike, should Dardoch be kind of concerned here that he hasn't been able to get that snowball going, given how good Xmithie's early decision-making was?
This is the worst case scenario for Rengar in this situation because half of this jungle is taking control of with vision wards and pink wards, so in this sense, he can only farm from one quadrant of the jungle.
Yeah. Then he can only make plays, you'd think, on a side lane because they're going to lose all the team fights, but then he's trying to make a side lane play against Shen with Baron being up soon. It's just a bunch of bad cases.
Darshan is running in here. Righteous got it in onto Ole, who he also going to cut him off. Goodbye, Dardoch. Gonna get a trinket stack finally.
A big opportunity there by CLG to catch Ole, and it's pretty much off an opponent misplay. Ole doesn't need control over that part of the map right now. They need control around Baron and mid lane priority. So that's the one place where Dardoch was going to be, and he makes a play.
Dardoch actually going again into Xmithie, gonna try and get even more stacks. TP in from Flame though, because Immortal's gonna try and force CLG away. CLG looking for the turret, 6-8 firing in, but no minions left, so extra armor really hurting, and Darshan's gonna have to back off. Flame TP's in to save the turret for now.
Nakamura trying to heal up, still has a refillable potion. They really want to get that turret. CLG, the one way they play with Rock is just set up shop and hope you win a sustained war.
Oh, they knew Dardoch was there, but that could be a mistake. Xmithie goes down to Darshan, who burns that ulti. He's able to take the rest of the health. Good shots there from Cody, but not enough to take down the Cho'Gath. And feels like a bit of a mistake there from Xmithie. CLG camp that brush, take the turret, and get the pick, and now Flame is going to get knocked back in as well. Cody's slowed by the rupture, but Flame's going to be fine in the front line.
Yeah, and this is what CLG was hoping to be able to do at 20 minutes without a gold deficit, because that's kind of how their team composition works. We know they don't have a large amount of crowd control, but they have the ability to win the sustained game. If they can just camp out in front of a turret, have the big beefy Cho'Gath tank all the skill shots, sustain everything else up with the Soraka, and try and force Immortals to set up bad initiations, that's how CLG would want to play.
And so, Mike, I have to ask you, kind of given that the map opened up again in that midsection, is Dardoch kind of opened up more to do some farming? Because you said earlier the issue is that he just couldn't get out of a single quadrant of his jungle. Is there more space now that CLG have a bit more map room? Or do they still need to kind of continue taking out turrets and get even more space to farm with?
So I feel that CLG is still in the deficit and the disadvantage due to the tower lead that Immortals has right now. And even though that just came back for CLG, it does help them because it does give them more time, and Immortals has lost control of the top side of the jungle.
Duskblade as well could help out here. Dardoch with that first major item completed. Going to be looking to assassinate some people. We've seen him already this weekend tear through them squishies, and there's a good, I guess 3 good targets on Immortal's side here for him to try and assassinate. Flame probably not going to die in that side lane though, so Dardoch going to again have to play smartly to deny that vision and try and find the necessary picks.
Yeah, and Immortals lost a lot of ground when Ole got picked and they lost that mid lane turret, because they had secured the Mountain Drake, and they had secured control wards in CLG's blue side jungle and essentially starved Dardoch away from that quadrant of the map. So when that play turned the other way, it means Immortals has to set all that up again.
Yeah, correct. And Immortals had that all set up for the Baron play coming at 20 minutes. So it was really unfortunate that Xmithy and both Relay got caught out in a perfect scenario for Immortals.
Darshan rushing in again. Just Glory hasn't been the item on every Cho'Gath, but if we were thinking maybe CLG's engage could have been a little bit better, Righteous Glory is one way to go about it. Certainly curious there as Flame takes some damage, but he's going to be A-OK. CLG just clearing out vision here. And Immortals just still trying to hammer away at this turret. Needs a couple more shots, and looks like this might be enough. Have to dodge out from the damage of Huhi, but there we go. Able to take that down. Darshan's Righteous Glory not back up, and gonna need a pretty big rush to try and take it down. In fact, Huhi, they're gonna cut him off. Cody Sun with a flash. Pobelta flashes out there as well. Two good sums there for Huhi. As Ole evaporates. Dardoch able to chase one down with his ultimate. Darshan even gonna flash in. Looks for Smithy, but the silence does not land after the J4 flash.
Yeah, they got 3 flashes on Immortals though there, so if Huhi can go and get the next Weaver's Wall with a pick like that, they can make something happen. This is another siege scenario where they have a numbers advantage, so this could be another turret for CLG.
They're looking for it, but they can actually try and make a play. Immortals diving onto the carries, got Flame too late. Darshan eats Smithy, able to take him down as he does fall under the turret. Flame picks up the counter kill, and Cody Sun sniped Aphromoo on the other end of it. Stixxay also going to get rooted up, but able to buffer the jump out before it happens. Flash Taunt for Flame in onto Huhi. He's going to take him down. And now chasing it onto Dardoch. IMT throwing that gold lead around as Cody Sun trying to get those last few shots in. Dardoch dodges out of the way, but Pobelta there with a missile, able to take one down. The ace almost complete. Stixxay needs to dodge these missiles. Does do so, he gets back safely, but Immortals find a way back in.
Yeah, killing Soraka early in that fight was really key. CLG really didn't have many other plays other than to push mid right there, so they force Immortals into the fight, but this time, Immortals is able to convert.
And Dardoch not going to be available to steal this by the looks of things. Seen a lot of miraculous Baron steals this weekend, and CLG actually going to keep it. This could be the problem.
He doesn't have Feast, but Immortals doesn't necessarily know that.
All right, well, Baron already dead, so I think Darshan just TP'd into die. Gets a good double knock onto the carry. Stixxay looking to play cleanup as Cody's low. Should die to Darshan, and Stixxay able to take down Pobelta. Darshan doesn't have that last kill, but Stixxay dies on the other end of it. Smithy able to claim his life, and Darshan probably not getting out of this either.
Yeah, it'll be a little unlikely if he's able to survive this one. He's hoping for an eat. He has it back up.
Oh, silence is in. Really wanting away, but yeah, Flame shuts that down. I will say I'm very sad we didn't get to talk about a Baron contest there. That was the next thing I wanted to go to. But instead, we'll watch this replay. Actually, our CLG had a really nice fight for themselves here with IMC kind of running them down.
Yeah, we need to watch where Aphromoo falls here because that's one of the clutch things. So Darshan's taking turret aggro. Huhi gets ulted on, and Aphromu's pretty low. Oh my god. 4th shot from that lethality Jhin build takes him down. At that point, CLG's in a full retreat.
Not a whole lot they can do. Flame able to follow up nicely with the taunt. And then Stixxay the only one left at the end of it. Fancy feed for Dardoch does not get him out of this.
Yeah, so Mike, now with Baron on Immortals and double Knight's Vow, where do you see the first place of attack for them being?
So the first place of attack is always the mid lane, so you would always want that wave to be shoving. Otherwise, CLG can counter with pushing the mid lane if they don't get proper control of the side lane vision.
And is it a consideration where, in general, you kind of do things methodically, like take the mid lane turret and then take the next tier 2 on your strong side and then rotate down? Do you prefer to play that way? Or do you think, like, sometimes you, based on comp, you need to kind of brute force down one lane and really open up a lead for yourself?
It really depends on the matchup and depending on how strong you are in a situation like this, where Immortals is just taking this pretty slowly, where they want to get vision control in the jungle first so they can rotate between multiple lanes at once.
Trying to do maximum damage there as Knight's Vow for Smithy onto Pobelta.
Yeah, they rebound, so they now have Knight's Vows on both the Corki and the Jhin, and then an Ardent Sensor on Karma. Trying to get all the synergistic support items in there at once.
And again, just some really nice cleaning of vision out on this bottom side to give IMT the opportunity to bounce between bot and mid as they choose. Going to be a little tough perhaps here. So although Flame is creating, I guess, that 3rd wave of pressure, so I'm going to see that set up across the map here for IMT. We do again have Baron buff for another minute and a half. Still pressuring in.
It's going to be really difficult for Immortals to siege anything without making a pick, due to CLG's pick on.
Oh, there we go. That's exactly it. Flame trying to push up the side lane.
There's actually 3 here, but Flame already dead very quickly. Not really that tanky. IMT going to try and answer with a turret. Smithy back quickly, but Darshan not able to save that turret, but it's only 1. I think CLG will take that.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good pick, and I think that's how CLG is going to try and extend the game. Anytime they try and do a 4-1 or a 1-3-1, CLG has the tools to collapse a little bit faster as long as they're going onto the Shen.
Like smart stuff there. CLG able to kind of cut the rest of that push off. And IMT, despite taking that mid turret, will be able to again buy some more time. Looks like Pobelter attacking bot side for now, but Cody actually, yeah, gonna have to run. Xmithy looking to protect him, but now he's the one kind of caught out. Silenced up. Rupture isn't quite gonna land. He actually dodges out of the way. Is he gonna fight it out? 3v3. Darshan popping the stone plate is Xmithy. And onto who he eats him down with the stone plate damage helping out. And Afro helped out with the wish as well. Cooldown's getting burned as who he low. Root's gonna land in. That could be a pick there for Immortals, but not enough damage from Pobelter. Now Dardo's gonna leap back in as Flame. Gonna try and save his life. Great buster shot there from Styx. They able to keep Pobelter out of the way as Flame still diving and looking to take down Afro, but Dardock looks to move the snare back through. Darshan playing zone control as the root lands in onto Flame. It's just damage everywhere. It's actually enough to kill the Troygas finally as Flame not quite there on the top. Pobelter does have enough with the missiles. Dardock coming back in, takes down Cody. Pobelter, they got a triple kill out of the deal as Dixie trying to chase down the last 2 carries.
Dardock ate Cody's son at the end of that fight as well, though, so he's pretty big on Rengar. Interesting how CLG did actually kite that out long enough to make it a 3v3. It's not quite over yet, even if Immortals has that large goal lead.
I have to wonder, what is the role of a Rengar at this stage? Because obviously you're looking to assassinate, but if you're not there yet on item thresholds, what's the best thing Dardock can be doing? Is he should just be patient, perhaps?
So patience is really key for a champion like Rengar because you always have to hold on to the ultimate until the perfect moment where the AD carry wastes his flash or overextends.
And this fight, you can see a bit of a gargoyle stone plate battle. Smith used it early, so Darshan wants to hold his eat, but it drops. Darshan uses his zone and then eats them, and then these fights are really all about reaching the Soraka or just applying the grievous wounds to who you're focusing. Ole can't get it on everyone at once. It's a Jin, and he's the only one to have it. Six, they played that beautifully on the backside to disengage for a while, and then right here is where Pobelter picks up the triple kill, but the patience that Mike just talked about on Dardock's Rengar, right? He waits for his ultimate, needs to proc it, he's gonna get his Duskblade proc when he jumps on Cody's son, and can't really overdive, otherwise they'd kill him through, but completely bursts him down before Pobelter can pick up the end of his triple kill.
Nice stuff there. Again, Dardock still kind of moving into those next few items. Doesn't have his third just yet. And on the other side of that jungle matchup, Smithy kind of very tanky. I mean, I asked what his role is, although hold that thought as Dardock poking down the bot lane. But Flame, I think recognizing this, is going to back off and play it safe. So we're going to look at Dardock. He's looking for those key targets in his moment. What is Smithy trying to do here? I mean, full tank Jarvan, I imagine you're just trying to soak up as much damage as possible, but didn't look that easy versus the Cho'Gath.
So Xmithy's role in this team comp is just to choose the right fights. And that's going to be the most important thing, whether they get onto the Soraka or a really priority target, and just to avoid the Cho'Gath just entirely.
I also want to point out there's been a lot of rebinding of the Knight's Vows, because even though they kind of have their designated guy they're binding to, if he's not there in the team fight, you can actually rebind in a team fight if your Knight's Vow guy dies, so to speak. So they're doing it very actively to make sure they always have it running.
Kind of smart there. One of those items that rapidly picked up in popularity, I think, to the happiness of a lot of our color casters here. Finally, everyone's buying Knight's Vow.
Yeah, maybe not to the happiness of all junglers now that you are in servitude to your carries.
How do you feel, Mike? Do you like Knight's Vow in your carry, or are you just like, nah, man, let me carry this game?
I think it's a really great item right now because the stats are really good by itself as well. And you get that extra healing.
And Cody?
Darshan back in, but Cody's safe. See how IMC looks to re-engage this, if at all. You can kind of see that CLG are struggling to find clean initiations because they really just have Darshan pops Righteous Gloria runs at them. It's pretty telegraphed.
Yeah. And they no longer have that, so
yeah.
Now it's Immortals trying to find the right play. Immortals still with the goal lead.
Playing down mid lane, actually, but CLG are trying to really threaten this Baron. I mean, Cho'Gath is a champion to enter the metagame so recently. How much of his presence changes kind of your math around big objectives like Baron?
So pretty much, CLG can choose when to Baron as long as they get a pick.
Well, looks like pick maybe for Immortals is the go. There's actually Dardoch down. That's one of two potentially, but Flame going to go to the backline. Huhi getting struck massively low as Pobelta still throwing in missile sticks there though, off to the side, hitting onto the tank. Pobelta went a little too far forward, got kited out, but he's GA. He's going to pop him by time. Stixay falls to Flame and Darshan caught, and the rest of the team should be going down here as well. All clear for Baron as IMT take 3 kills for nothing.
Yeah, not too common of an item for the Corki, but the GA on Pobelter comes in huge right there as he's willing to overcommit and get some critical kills for Immortals.
Now Baron over to them. Ocean Drake up if they want it, but again, looking to maximize their attackers. We'll watch this one again.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about who can pick whom right here. Dardoch's still very squishy. Xmithie even sweeps to make sure he's not the one getting picked off. Gets enough CC onto Dardoch that Pobelta can jump in and finish this one off. Flame then ults in, gets a catch onto Huhi, and most of CLG's damage is in retreat.
And I think this is the beauty of Immortals team comp compared to CLG, where Immortals can choose exactly what fights they want, where CLG has to be on the retrieving side of things.
Yeah, and we've seen before Immortals have the Baron in a pretty big gold lead, and then they set up the 1-4 and got collapsed on by CLG. Mike, what do you want to see Immortals do this time so that their Baron actually has a big power play?
It's really important for Immortals to coordinate their waves to hit at the exact time as every single other wave, so Shen doesn't get caught out through the Talia and the Rengar ultis. So you see here that Flame is going very slow, just in case that happens again.
I think, yeah, was definitely very careful. IMT though taking that tier 2, so Flame's going to have to speed it back up. Titanic Hydra should make pretty short work of those waves. And again, can join with teleport if you need to, and ulti in just a few.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Worst case, Flame can join a 5v5 CLG. He's tried to initiate his 5v4 rather than him just dying on his own.
Certainly needing to crack some inhibitors though. Oh, Dardoch, very cute. Steals the blast cone away. Oh, maybe not that cute. Almost gets himself killed for it.
Trying to kill time. Immortals now with the Shen, but they have everyone in CLG in vision, so they can push with impunity.
They're both are so strong at this stage. They're able to chunk down that turret with Cody beside him. I mean, having 2 marksmen is pretty good when you're in any sort of siege situation. So IMT just going to rotate back towards mid, and we'll start a different set of pressure here. Just trying to crack as many inhibitors as possible. I mean, is that the goal here? Or are we just trying to...
Yeah. Goal is also to kill the Nexus.
That too.
Another thing that Immortals can look for is just the summoner spell timings for Talia in the Tristana and the Soraka here, where Jarvan's ulti can be very valuable in this next fight.
I'm actually curious that I imagine it changes on different teams, but kind of who's responsible for those timings? Maybe just speaking from your perspective, Mike.
Just coming from my perspective, it's everybody's responsibility depending on who sees it.
Okay. That's the team thing there. It's Darshan, you know, to Xmithie, silences him down, but relatively tanky. Rupture's good. They're going to try and eat him down. That could be a kill, but not enough as Flame's ulti able to help out and save him. Dardoch, though, still looking for that flank as Darshan getting low. Jumped in onto Ole. Not enough, and he flashes out. And now IMT turn around. Great wall from Huhi, though. Going to cut them all off, but Cody's son's got Flame in front of him to try and fight it out. Now going to get silenced, but damage not quite enough from CLG. Cody now going to let it rip. Probably not going to get a kill. Darshan, a big meat shield. Dardoch, though, eating that last bullet. Taking a pretty sizable chunk of his health as Flame. No, Pobelta, I think, in a TP back in. Doesn't matter who it is actually Flame, but IMT able to take down this next turret. And Pobelta is so strong, just forcing everybody out with maybe 1 or 2 autos.
Yeah, that's one big thing about this team is while Cody's son is getting the lethality snipes on the squishy targets, it's Pobelta who's shredding the tanks in the front.
Oh, Xmithie gets out of there. Cody, oh, never mind. Shoved back into Huhi and just shoots him for that final kill. Looks like IMT going to clean this one up. Nexus turrets falling everywhere. CLG far too long on the respawns in a 5v3. They'll do what fighting they can, but Stixay going to get rid of the next exposed, and that's going to be Immortals taking game number 1.
Yeah, in the battle for first, Immortals get the first win on the red side as well. They had the team competition with more initiation. Xmithie made some very crucial decisions early on in the jungle, get them the lead, and they did not give it up.
Did feel like, in hindsight, looking back at that draft, CLG, especially when they got behind, just kind of got to the point where they're like, oh, we don't have any way to start any fights. I mean, you could see Darshan trying, but I felt like at some point that draft really let them down.
Yeah, it was really important for Dardoch to play very consistent throughout the entire early game phase so that Immortals wasn't able to snowball their initiation type of draft.
Unfortunately, the opposite happened, where Xmithy, again, making some really smart decisions to get himself back into the game. And then I think for me, I'll remember that dive in the bottom lane, getting a 3-man knock-up and really snowballing the game.
Yeah, I love watching Xmithy, especially this split, seeing him in a different environment than CLG. I feel like he's kind of really coming into his own, playing against both these teams. Xmithy, what is it like to play against this guy? Because he feels like he does different things than other junglers do.
I feel that Xmithy is just like the very mid-centric and team-oriented jungler, which is something that I aspire to be like, where you can get really good control and just be a really good shot caller and just control the game just by your voice.
And kind of on style, do you think Dardoch maybe falling too far back into more of the assassins? I mean, we've seen him play tanks. He's clearly willing to be more of a team player, but do you think he's just like, give me Rengar, I will carry, and he's maybe indexing too far into that tendency again?
I feel like that this game's early game and just the snowball from Immortals came down to Xmithy reading Dardoch in that really crucial moment onto the left bush of the mid lane fight.
Well, it makes a lot of sense there. But before we go over game one, I'd like to say thank you to Mike Young for joining our cast. But now we're going to throw it over to the analysts to get their thoughts on the game.
Thank you very much, Pastry Time and Mike Young, for joining the caster desk. Great insight out of him, and it's really cool to hear that he aspires to be a player similar to Xmithy. Again, watching Xmithy transition from CLG to Immortals, become very much a leader for the team, and to kind of hear from the rest of the members on the roster what he's done in service of developing their strategies and their playbooks. It's been a really cool journey to track.
Right, I think that's one of the, like, you have to look at that as like one of the defining things that changed this season. Obviously him, and then they brought in a new coaching staff.
Right.
But especially early on in the season, it felt like everything was keyed off Smithy's early game playmaking, and he's not. He's very efficient. Where it's not like he sits in the lane and does a cheesy gank where he waits until, you know, why would he ever be there? He shows up, he turns the kill, he moves on. It's really good to see.
Absolutely. So let's dive into this game one specifically, pulling up champion select here. Once again, we have a Jhin pick coming in fairly early from Immortals, and not very many tanks on the opposing team. Now, again, this isn't to say that the entire game was won or lost for that reason. It's just something I'd like to see more teams adjust towards when you see a Jhin pick across from you.
And once again, I think it's the kind of thing where Cho'Gath taken early on, he's super strong, but he benefits from a little bit more setup. So when you have things like a Gragas potentially available in the jungle, you look at supports, while there were a lot of Afro's primary champions banned out, we've seen him perform on Alistar. Maybe you think Karma's a little bit too much harassed. What about a Braum? There's these other tanky champions that you can pick that should be better for the team comp than a Soraka, who was largely neutralized by the fact that one, Jhin bought the early Executioner's Call and cuts in the healing, and then playing against Karma, you're still going to get poked out because now your healing is halved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the point about Cho'Gath needing that buddy, right? Again, it's like, yeah, technically, you know, Rengar can threaten somebody with you, but he doesn't enable you to get to that person very easily the way an Alistar knockup would allow you to close that gap onto a priority target.
You saw, yeah, there were a couple times around mid lane where Dardoch was able to go in because not everyone was grouped up, and he could land an empowered Bola and Root. And then you saw a little bit of that chain CC combo start coming in, but when it's a full grouped up 5v5 situation, you heard Mike Young saying, you don't want to be the first guy in as that Rengar going full lethality. You want to be playing the edges of the fight. And if that's the Rengar doing that, well, what's the Cho'Gath doing? A lot of times, Darshan felt lost in the fight, just kind of walking around, hoping someone ended up in range of him because his ruptures were missing.
Also, I want to go into the microcosm of the top lane, because we've seen Shen picked into Cho'Gath multiple times now. What's your opinion on the way this matchup goes throughout the game, so early, mid, and late?
It's a little tough to say, just because the two previous times I remember seeing it before this game was they were very influenced early on by an aggressive level 1 trade followed by jungler interference. So this was one of the first times that we saw it without a ton of that. Dardoch did go up there relatively early on, but it feels like if the Cho'Gath doesn't lose level 1 and take a really bad trade early and focuses more on controlling the wave, at some point the sustain just kicks in too much, and the wave clear advantage just through his skills being all AoE, that eventually the Shen just kind of ends up sitting there and farming.
Right.
And we saw Flame had a CS advantage, and the camera wasn't up there too often, but it didn't feel like he ever had pressure on the Cho'Gath. And then you would think that come late game and team fight situations, it would be pretty good for the Cho'Gath if he had, like we said, better setup to blow people up.
Yeah, very much so. Of course, the Shen aiding the team and keeping people safe from the Cho'Gath, you know, kind of all in at times. Now let's dive into some gameplay itself. 11 minutes in, a huge triple kill going over to the way of Cody-san here on a very impressive dive. But even before this dive happened, you can see the dominance that they had in the 2v2.
Right, this is a situation where they've been kind of pushed in under the turret for a while. They kept being under pressure, and finally, you know, they get this big playoff where Pobelter's able to teleport in. They get them all low. They try and get the recall off. Maybe you can pop more heals, but that's just going to put the Soraka low, and they end up in this nice, perfect line where some of them try and flash over, but Smithy set the flash up to angle himself properly to make sure that all of them are underneath that. Huge triple knockup. The bouncing grenade grabs a couple, as well as the I think it was the third shot. Actually, it wasn't the fourth shot.
Right.
But either way, Jhin ends up with a triple kill, and now, against this relatively squishy team comp, your lethality Jhin is completely online.
Exactly. You run into that issue where you don't have the health to absorb what is essentially true damage coming through on a lot of your targets because of the lethality that he was able to build up.
And that said, you could see that CLG's comp still worked relatively well. They had a lot of siege potential around mid lane. They forced around there a couple times, and Ole got picked off once, and then Smithy got picked off. And because they do have that chain CC threat with a long-range Tristana and a Soraka to heal, you see where the comp kind of works.
To me, that speaks to the competitiveness of these two teams, though. The fact that they are our two first-place teams, because when we saw that triple kill go over to Jhin, I turned to you, I was like, well, this game's over.
Yeah.
And credit to CLG, they extended this game with multiple one fights of their own, and they definitely made this difficult for Immortals to come away with a victory.
Right, you put that advantage against a lesser team. Immortals rolls over this game. This time around, CLG able to find opportunities. Like you heard Mike Young saying, they have to play a little bit on the defensive, but they finally wait for a chance where Immortals oversteps their bounds a little bit. Ole got caught off, and that's where they started taking that turret in the mid lane. And then it wasn't until the second time that they tried to set up that Immortals was finally able to punish them.
Yeah, Immortals find their fight at 23 minutes. Another 3-for-1 coming in for them here in the mid lane.
And once again, people starting to get low, Soraka not being able to keep them completely healthy, and Darshan just kind of ends up under the turret, CC'd, and not able to get out of there. Also the Jhin, fourth shot coming in from the ultimate, able to pick up the Soraka as well. So now the healing's cut. She doesn't even have that much disengage either. This is one of those times where you're like, hey, a Braum walking forward with a shield would be pretty nice there, or an ultimate. And instead it just leads to this long chase down sequence where Immortals picks up 4 members by the end of it, and then they're able to turn on the Baron right after.
Yeah, to me, it's just, again, it's about how forgiving these comps are in terms of execution. And when you have fewer tanks, as soon as Darshan gets Shen taunted under turret and focused down, the rest of the team has no choice but to retreat now because they don't have anyone to sit behind. Whereas again, on Immortals, fine, one of your tanks goes down in the Jarvan, you still have the Shen. If the Shen goes down, you still have the Jarvan. At least there's that secondary, barrier between our backline and your threats.
And this is the thing, is you aren't 100% sure, because we're still not 100% set in the meta. We've watched a ton of games at this point, but everyone's doing such different things, it's hard. When you talk to me about the Shen Cho'Gath matchup, I'm like, well, I've seen 3 games of it, and it went different a couple times.
Right.
So I'm not 100% certain, but in theory, it seems like tanks do have the advantage on the current meta because they just offer you, like you said, so much of a buffer when you make a mistake, as well as so much of an ability to punish when someone's caught out of position. We saw Someday illustrating that very well earlier in the day.
Yeah, Cody Sun picking up player of the game on the Jhin. Again, the triple kill comes through. The fantastic purchase of the Executioner's culling early on. I love to see that against Soraka's. I wish I saw it more often. But more importantly, I want to note moving into game 2 that CLG is opting to make a substitution. Omar God will be coming in place of Dardoch. What's your feeling on the substitution? Because, again, with how competitive that game was, it looks one-sided gold graph-wise, but we saw multiple plateaus here where CLG was, showing some prowess here in the game. I'm not sure Dardoch is the reason they lost this game.
No, I don't think I would agree. I think you saw him able to find a couple opportunities. He had some good looks in the early game to get some flashes out of the laners, and then he unfortunately got picked off twice around the mid lane. But it's hard to say that's his fault without knowing the communication of it. And so Omar God comes in, and maybe this is an instance where the champion pools will differentiate a little bit more if he can play things like the Cho'Gath, the Maokai, the Gragas, the Sejuani, these more tanky-oriented junglers. Maybe you do see CLG actually pivot their team comps a little bit more.
Right, this actually could be a case where we're using that 6-man roster more like the old style Faker versus EasyHoon. We're actually going to put you in for specific champion pool reasons. We'll have to wait and find out in just a few minutes. We'll see if Counterlogic Gaming can fight back in our battle for first place, or if Immortals will pick up another 2-0. Don't touch that browser.